Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is August of 2023. My God, this year has gone by fast. I think I've said that every single update vlog, but man, it just seems to be flying on by. All right, so one of the major updates for this update vlog is the fact that I'm back. And back in a different way than I have been. For a while, I've just kind of occasionally uploaded some videos. But I got sick of there not being any videos. Used to be I'd upload a lot more frequently, but just life has constantly been getting me down, and so I've been kind of lacking in motivation. And so randomly, a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make some bloody videos. And so I got to work. And now my goal is to try to have 2 videos per week, per month. Or no, 2 videos per week each month. There we go. I think I said it right the first time. But anyway, and what I've done to be able to do that is I'm picking games and books and movies / TV shows that I don't really have to think about. It's where it's, you know, in my random access memory and can go from brain to fingertips to page. They're going to be a lot shorter, but they're not going to be shallow Wikipedia-styled videos that sadly have inundated YouTube. It's going to be stuff that I have a personal connection to, I guess you could say. And so it's going to be short videos, you know, like less than 10 minutes, maybe a little over 10 minutes. I'm actually going to be increasing the production values for the September videos, and I'm going to continue that throughout, where I'm going to start the game reviews with the old camera. I'm bringing that back, where I'm going to have like a host segment at the beginning and a host segment at the end. These videos will have a lot of the great content that I normally have, but just a whole lot shorter so I can get them out a whole lot faster. Because there's been a lot of games and books and movies and TV shows that I wanted to talk about for years, but with my old method, it just took way too long to get them produced. Because one of the things I'm going to be reviewing, probably in 2024, is the Mega Man fan film. You know, nobody's talked about that thing in years. It's like, it was great for what it was. I mean, it's still better than most Hollywood attempts at making video game to movie transitions. And there's been a lot of books I've wanted to talk about. And so what I will do is just focus on what is important when it comes to describing whatever the media property is. If it's a game, how does it play? You know, like, not just like, it's a first-person shooter where you play as blah, blah. No, it's like, in this game, you'll need to do this to not die or something like that. There's a video I have planned for way out in, I think, either November or December, which is going to be on Batman NES. Originally, I probably could have got like a 20-minute video out of that. Instead, it's going to probably be a little less than 12 or 13 minutes. And I'm going to talk about, you know, like a specific spot in that game where like the fun just goes away. Like, there is no more fun anymore. And then kind of like, once you get past it, the fun kind of returns. There's some real bullshitty enemies in Batman NES. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to focus on these little details that a lot of major reviews just kind of gloss over. Because a lot of these major reviews act like, a lot of these major reviewers on YouTube, it's like they never even saw, played, or read any of the stuff they're talking about. So yeah, that's coming up. For the month of September, I've already got all the scripts done for the 8 videos for that month. We can be having a review of Batman Arkham Asylum. I'm going to be a lot kinder to that this time. I'm still going to point out pretty much the same issues, and I was right, because Rocksteady Games fixed all the issues I had in Arkham City, which now has a high-res texture pack, which is really cool. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to Arkham City as a review, but it's just kind of neat that it has that Arkham Asylum. In the time between me recording the gameplay footage and today, Arkham Asylum now has a fully completed texture pack, so you can play it in updated graphics. In addition to Arkham Asylum, I've got Golden Axe. It's a game that all the retro reviewers used to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it again and explain why it's good. Also going to be reviewing Kill.Switch, which is a fairly obscure third-person shooter that innovated the cover-based system by making it much more fluid. And finally, I'm going to be reviewing Titanfall 2, which is probably going to be the shortest game review of the month, just because it is a first-person shooter and it's good. There's not much really more for me to say other than that, except point out some of the things that, once again, some of the major reviews kind of gloss over. And then there's going to be 2 books. Drakenfels, which is the very first Warhammer Fantasy book, and Dragon Slayer, which is my second favorite Gotrek and Felix book, because they fight a dragon, as you'd expect. And then finally, I'm going to be reviewing 2 TV shows, Strange New Worlds and Mandalorian Season 1. The Strange New Worlds review is one of those things where I finished that script midway into Season 2 of Strange New Worlds, and I was like, yeah, Strange New Worlds is great. And then they released a musical episode, and it's as cringy as that sounds. You got like these Star Trek characters jumping around and dancing, and like, it's worse than you would think. Because, okay, a musical might, okay, well, it's not going to be good, but a musical's not, okay, making a musical is one of those things that, like, does Star Trek need to have a musical episode? Because when you think of Star Trek, do you think of exploring strange new worlds and dancing? It's like the Masked Dancer or whatever. And, you know, there was a musical book set in Star Trek from like the 70s, written by like some guy named Ford, where like the Klingons and Captain Kirk had to like dance to get a planet into the Federation or the Klingon Empire. And I'm sure that book was god-awful. And then, of course, there's another god-awful episode in Strange New Worlds. I mean, I'm completely turned off of the series by these last two episodes of Strange New Worlds. It's like, you had them dancing around, and here's why that episode's so bad. Is there's, like, major plot events that happen in that episode, but it's done in song, which leads me to believe the showrunners didn't want to make Star Trek in the first place, and are just using Star Trek as a vehicle for them to get noticed. But the other episode that was bloody awful was the one where it crossed over with Lower Decks. Now, if you're not a Star Trek fan, you don't know what any of this shit is. Star Trek Lower Decks was a comedy Star Trek show. So in this comedy Star Trek show, it's set in the 24th century, and it tries to have continuity with the original 24th century back in TNG. It tries to maintain that aesthetic. It does not do it well. It is the most annoying show I have ever seen. Imagine Bick and Bordy, but Star Trek, and more annoying. Well, why don't you take two of the most annoying characters in that show, who happen to be the main characters, and put them in Strange New Worlds? And it's like, you just want to yell, shut up already. They're just so annoying. They won't stop talking. Yep, and they've got nothing to say. Needless to say, Star Trek is dead again to me. So there's that. So it's like the worst, the people that hate Star Trek or Star Wars the most are the fans. No, I love those shows. It's just when they're bad, I don't want to watch them. It's like, that's it, the end. So anyway, Mandalorian Season 1, I kind of get harsh with it, but I do say it's a great show anyway. And Mandalorian Season 1 is pretty good. I think Season 2 is a bit better, though. Especially with the return of a few major characters. So check that out in September. For the rest of the month, well, you'll just have to wait like everyone else to see what comes out. Let's see, what else we got? Oh yeah, let's take a look at some pickups here. Most notably, that. Oh my god, it's a steampunk airship. You can get these off of Amazon for like, I think $80. This thing's actually pretty heavy. It's got 1,600 pieces. The reason I picked that up and why it's so cool is the fact that not only is it a huge, well-detailed airship, but it also has its own LED lighting kit, which is a hell of a steal for like $80. What's kind of funny, though, is this is a Chinese knockoff. Well, it's not even a Chinese knockoff, I don't think. I know this has got to be from some anime, but I have no idea what anime it is. It's like, it's right at the tip of my brain, but I can't remember the anime. I'm thinking like Howl's Moving Castle, maybe? But the name here, F.O., Delight Day and Night. Oh, they couldn't have been more suggestive if they tried. F.O. stands for Fun Hole. Oh, dear. But in the instruction manual, they have their mission statement for making knockoff Chinese Legos. And like the mission statement is, they want to provide fun day and night because of the LED lighting kit. So it's Fun Hole. And you know, that makes sense. It makes sense. It makes linguistic sense in English. Fun hole. Okay, that's all right. But the connotations, yeah, it's kind of like saying wiener these days, you know? It does not sound, you would not want to be an Oscar Mayer wiener. I'm just saying. But no, it's like fun hole. I mean, that makes sense, but my God, is that suggestive. One other pickup is my favorite of them all. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God, Hasbro actually got something right. This is 10 troops. You can get this off of Amazon for like $50. 10 troops for $50. And they're so well detailed. Some of the paint apps could be better, but it's beautiful. It's got everybody in there. And here's the thing. Say what you will about the sequel trilogy, and the sequel trilogy is trash, but good God, did they get the armor right. They couldn't get the ships right. That First Order Star Destroyer was just garbage. But I mean, the Sith Trooper looks great. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but that First Order Trooper looks great. Even Captain Phasma, who I apparently wasn't actually used very much, she looks great. I love that cape. It's just, this is a great little collection of troops. I can't help but just go and look at it when it is sitting on one of the shelves. It's like they're all there. Of course, you have the 501st guy. You've got one of the Coruscant shock troopers. You got the TIE pilot. I'm not sure what the TIE pilot's doing there. I'm sure he's there to like pad out the numbers, because he's not really a troop. He's a pilot. He'd probably feel very bad if you called him a soldier, because he's a flyboy. He's from the Air Force or Space Force, whatever the case might be. But anyway, those are the two great pickups. Very inexpensive, very worth the price. Let's see what else we got here, ladies and gentlemen. So the next live streams are going to be of Quake 2 Enhanced Edition and Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. Ludicrous, is that the rapper version? Ludicrous Edition. I'm really glad to see both of those games get a little remastering so it's easier for modern gamers to play. I remember when I first reviewed Rise of the Triad, I don't know how many, over 10 years ago probably. Like, back in those days, I don't even think it was on GOG. I remember, like, to get those games, you used to have to buy them from, like, kind of shady websites. I remember, like, Rise of the Triad was, like, on this ancient Apogee website that probably hadn't been updated in, like, 5 or 10 years by that point. It's just amazing to see this stuff coming back, probably thanks to YouTube and people know about it more. Quake 2, Quake 2, oddly enough, always kind of ran on any modern system. Like, you just install it and it works. I mean, I've played Quake 2 so much. It is probably my single favorite non-Doom first-person shooter. Just because the music, the aesthetics, and I'm glad that it got remastered for a modern audience. See, here's the thing. I used to be kind of against remastering. It's like, all these new people, they don't know. But like now it's like, yeah, I guess you kind of need to do that. You need to be able to get this game out so people can play it. I was very against the Doom 3 BFG edition. I still kind of am, because it's like, it doesn't really graphically update it nearly as much as the mods do. But as I've gotten older, I kind of realized that, well, Doom 3 BFG edition, you could go buy it for the Xbox 360. And, little Timmy could now play one of the great first-person shooters of all time. He'd have it there, Yeah, it's not a really good conversion because it ruins the lighting, but you know what? Little Timmy can now experience a real game instead of the crap games. Well, that's actually kind of funny. I was going to say the crap games of the time, but I'm kind of looking back at the 2010s era games, and at least they were games. They weren't all just, loot boxes and crap, because like trying to find a good game today is almost impossible. The games back then, at least they had gameplay. At least if you paid your money, you got pretty much the game, unless it was EA, and then they would leave out little bits that weren't that important. So I mean, there's that. It's still, though, getting games to as wide an audience as possible is a good idea. And I was very much against it because, like, we'll just play it on PC. But if you give little Timmy a Switch with Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, well, he's playing it. Whereas if you get it for the PC, you got to get GOG, you got to install the game. I can see that there's a barrier to entry for the PC more now than I used to. So I'm glad to see this stuff getting re-released, because the great games are all old now. Because sadly, we're not getting anything good. I mean, like, you would think if the Mandalorian TV show had come out in 2005, we would have gotten a Mandalorian game. That is something that should be able to print money. If you were able to have an open world Mandalorian game where you flew to different planets getting bounties and stuff like that, people would buy that. I do not know why LucasArts did not release 1313. Playing as Boba Fett? Hell yeah! Even if it was a generic third-person shooter, the act of playing as Boba Fett would have made that game sell. I mean, because just look at Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is pretty much the only game where you can play as a Mandalorian. And it's not the greatest of games, but it's still playable. If we had something a little better than that, it'd be awesome, but we don't have that, because you know, I know that Jedi Survivor has gotten fairly popular, and Boba Fett does cameo in that, but it's like, I don't really care that much about Cal Kestis, although I do intend to try and complete Jedi Fallen Order, then maybe move on to Survivor, but still, I'd much rather play as somebody cool, like a Mandalorian, and not some stupid Jedi. I mean, never mind. Let's see, what else we got? Fanfic. Hand of Thrawn 45. He wrote a continuation of the Star Wars Legacy series. For those who do not know, Star Wars Legacy took place in the true EU about 150 years after the Battle of Yavin, so it's like a couple generations after our heroes died of old age. It was a comic series that lasted like 52 issues, and there was a second series that starred a different character that got ripped off by Kathleen Kennedy to make Rey. The original real Rey, which was Anya Solo, was a much better character, and she got her ass kicked whenever she acted like Rey did. But anyway, these fanfics take place after the end of Legacy 2. Damn good work. It's like, sometimes fanfic can be really crap, and sometimes fanfic can make you wonder, like, did a real writer write that? Did he write it under his assumed Hand of Thrawn name? Did Timothy Zahn write that? Because I gotta tell you, I think Timothy Zahn might be moonlighting as Hand of Thrawn 45. I mean, that's kind of on the nose, but like, Hand of Thrawn's works read like it was written by a real writer. That's the thing. It's like, it reads like Timothy Zahn wrote it. It really does. Or if not him, then Michael Stackpole. I don't know. It's like, it's either going to be Timothy Zahn, Michael Stackpole, or Aaron Alston's dead. But if he was alive, he would have written like that. Maybe he's writing from beyond the grave. But seriously, though, like, Hand of Thrawn 45 is great. He also did a continuation of Republic Commando. And there's a scene in that story. It takes place after Imperial Commando, where Kyra Morit finally gets raided, and it's like, oh my god, I don't want to finish reading it because I don't want to see what happens. It's like, I haven't been this happy when it comes to books in like probably 15 years. And I remember there was a time in the early 2000s, ladies and gentlemen, when I was pre-ordering books all the time. There was a time when I was trying to figure out how to have enough money to buy the books I wanted to buy. You know, because like, I remember getting all those Warhammer omnibuses, you know, like Sigmar, his omnibus, or like the Gotrek and Felix omnibuses. Those things weren't cheap, and there were just so many good ones, and all the other Warhammer omnibuses that were great. Now Warhammer's still all right, but you know, it's not quite as good as it used to be in older years. And it's not a matter of like nostalgia. It's like, I've read new stuff, and it's just not quite as good. When I go back to stuff that I'm like 5-10 that I haven't read in 5 or 10 years or even more, and I'm like, wow, why can't I read more like that? Speaking of modern books, Monster Hunter Fever was released. Another book by Larry Correia. It's all right. It's not that great. I mean, it's got like this woman is the main character. She's like half demon, half human. The plot isn't particularly inspired. I mean, it's not bad. I ended up having to pay $14 for the advanced reader copy, and it had a lot more. It's kind of funny, like e-arcs, advanced reader copies, are usually pretty well edited, but this one was pretty crappily edited, and the story still just wasn't that great. Like, they fight a giant snake at one point. It was okay. It was better than Monster Hunter Grunge, I can tell you that. There's a review of that coming. Oh, I spoiled that. All right, let's see what else we got. I think so for today's philosophy playhouse. One of the things I want to point out again, I feel like I have to point this out almost every update vlog, but like, don't trust everything you read. It just seems to me that there's a lot of these terminally online people, as Generation Z is known to say, that's just, they're utterly depressed about everything. It's like, that cannot be healthy. I mean, I get that things aren't particularly great right now, but they're not quite as dire as is being advertised. And the thing is, the thing I always want to remind everybody of is news websites, news commentators, and news channels all are trying to get you, the reader, or you, the watcher, to click on it. So they do have to embellish a little bit. Because, you know, the old adage of man gets home safely from work doesn't sell, but man crashes car and dies does. And you just kind of have to recognize that, well, the world is always doomed, and then it's not. You really need to pay attention to what is important, because like if there's a giant wildfire and it's going to burn everything up, then pay attention. But, you know, like, when you read about studies of, like, sperm counts going down, it's like, how accurate is that really? Where did they get the information for that? Maybe it's true, but I don't know. It just seems like, where'd they get the numbers for that is always my question. You know, like all these different numbers they're using, different studies they're doing. It's like, who's they? What the hell's an aluminum falcon? So don't base your view of the world on other people that may or may not know what they're talking about. You know, I used to really pay attention to a lot of the stuff that people were talking about, and it's like, I finally started looking, it's like, wait a minute, what if they don't know what they're talking about? Because it's very easy when someone's like, and here's the source, here's the source, here's the source. Well, where did they get the sources from? Who wrote those sources? And what sort of slant is the commentator putting onto whatever the work is? And that's just something to kind of keep in mind. I think things aren't particularly great right now for a wide variety of people, but I don't think we're about 2 steps from, you know, complete societal collapse. Maybe I'm wrong. That's why you need to own a firearm and be proficient in its use and have a little bit of food stocked up. But, you know, just kind of relax, people. Take a step back. You know, don't trust every single thing you see and read, even if it, like, not enhances. What's the word? If it goes with your own beliefs, I guess is the way to put it. Because, you know, there was a commentator that I used to read on a regular basis, and I still read this person from time to time. And it's like, this is somebody who, you know, what's the word? It's something about bias. Who really is on the kind of same page as myself. But as I started reading, it's like, this person has some issues, and I'm like, what if those issues might or might not be clouding their judgment, you know? And then it's like, okay, you know what? I'll read it, I'll think about it, but I'm not going to just take it as gospel truth. And that's the main thing. Don't take anything, no matter what side you find yourself on, don't trust every source from your side or distrust every source from the other side. Really, when it comes to finding the truth, it's almost a never-ending battle because each side has their own vested interest in trying to sell you something. You know, usually it's an idea of some description, and it's their idea of reality. And so you kind of got to find, where is reality at all? And that's why it's like, just kind of keep an open mind. But don't just have an open mind that, I only believe what this side says, but my mind is open. You have a legitimate open mind and like, okay, was that true? I don't really care who said it, but was that true? It's one of those things where a number of years ago, you know, I used to watch some of these commentators on a much more regular basis than I do today, and it's like, it would be little mess ups that they would do. They'd kind of like mess up and say something that I knew wasn't true just from my own experience in life. I was like, wait a minute. If they got that wrong, what else did they get wrong? Just little things like that. One thing that has been annoying me, though, I think I might have mentioned this in another update vlog, but I'm sure nobody is actually memorizing these things. So, one thing that annoys me is that commentators on both sides of the aisle like to basically reduce males, and I happen to be one, and I'm happy to be one, to basically quasi-animals. It's something that I've seen on many occasions. And it really annoys me. I mean, sure, there's some really boorish people out there, but there's boorish people on both genders. And I'm like, it's like, on the one hand, you know, you've got people on one side who think that men are the worst of everything and that they're the ones that cause society to be terrible. And then you got the other side where it's like, men aren't evil, but they're stupid. You know, it's been a common comedy joke that, like, men don't think about anything. It's like, yeah, who invented the atomic bomb? I think it was males. So they can't be that stupid. But you get the idea. Really, it's like, oh, men invent weapons. It's like, yeah, but didn't, like, nuclear energy, like, revolutionize society? Wasn't it a male who came up with the green farming revolution so that people didn't starve to death and die? You kind of have to be fairly intelligent to do that. But you get the idea. It's like, there's this belief that men are really stupid, you know, and that's just not true. I mean, sure, there's going to be some. There's real boors out there, as Charles Emerson Winchester III might say. But, you know, not everyone is going to be like that. In fact, I really find the terms men and women in and of itself, in terms of society, intelligence, personality, and stuff like that. Obviously, the gender and the sex exists. But, you know, it's like, men are like this and women are like that. Well, Some are, some aren't. You know, we're talking about an aggregate. It's the same way that Americans are like this. Are you sure about that? Because an American from New York City is going to be very different from an American from a small town in Texas. Just saying. It's these aggregate of individuals, and so it really doesn't do anyone any good to say everybody acts like this and everybody acts like that, because they don't. And it's like the whole quasi-animalistic aspect that is ascribed to men just angers me to no end. You know, it's like, one of the things that seems to be fairly common, though, that I see in commentators from both sides of the aisle, is that apparently males, now I've never done this, and have no intention of doing it, love punching each other in the crotch. You know, I've been alive for 34 years. That's not that old, but in 34 years, I've never gotten the sudden desire to punch another man in the crotch. And this is seen as like, yeah, it's just manly behavior. I mean, of course men are gonna, like, punch each other in the nether regions. For those who don't know, that's very painful. And I don't wish to inflict pain upon another, nor would I want someone to inflict pain upon me. So I'm not entirely sure why men are supposed to want to do that, but it is something that was said both on the left and the right. I'm not really sure why this is supposed to be a thing, you know. And the whole concept of, like, women are like a certain way too really annoys me too, because, like, that made me really depressed about 13, 14 years ago. I had this very major fear that I'd never meet anybody that was actually halfway decent, because women are described as like these manipulative shrews, and that's not true. There are some that are like that, but not all. And I remember I was talking to somebody who was a friend of at the time, who's no longer a friend these days, that basically was like, yeah, women don't play video games, they just want to go to parties and watch movies. I think this is a movie that existed like 13 years ago, Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. I'll never forget that. And I actually kind of believed that person for a while, until I met a woman that was not like that, who would not watch such a movie. And I was very surprised around 2010, 2011 to meet a female that actually knew who Anakin Solo was. And that's when I realized, have I been lied to this entire time? Yes, I had been. So that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, people are individuals. Some may be less individualistic than others, but they are all individuals. Think of it like Batman. There's a lot of Batmans out there. They're each subtly different from one another, just like people. So be like Michael Keaton's Batman and be the best of them all. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm GeneralLotz. Don't punch each other in the balls. I really like this Trooper collection, and I'm going to be seeing you sometime next month in another update vlog. But until then, I wish you good Batman, Arkham Asylum, and good Golden Axe, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.